implemented the code for PCF and was also responsible for initial creation of the of making PCF general available. He is currently the primary architect on the PCF and also oversees the component architecture in the Power Platform. Then we have Scott Duro. Now, everyone knows Scott Duro, but now, and he's a familiar face in the community, I mean, he is my idol, to be honest. I look up to him. Yeah, thank you for being on the panelist. But Scott has created Ribbon Workbench. If you have not worked with Ribbon Workbench, then you should check it out. He is also a great speaker. I love to listen to him when he speaks. I actually go to every session whenever he speaks. I just love him talk. And he's very passionate about Dynamics. He has been, thank you. He has been in Dynamics world for God knows. I don't even know, like maybe 1.0, right? 1.3. It's been a long time that he's here. Hey Kaushik, I see Kaushik joining in. And then we have Dinah, and now you also heard Dinah present on PCF, and she is you might know her from the Power Apps community forum, and if you post any questions on Power App community, you would almost might have got a response from Dinah because she is the super user on the community. She responds to every question that comes on the community forum. So if you want to connect with Dinah, that's her Twitter account over there. Then is Ivan Fico. He is a Dynamics Ninja. He has created some great tools for community, including PCF generator, and I'm also using his PCF generator on XRM Toolbox on PCF builders as well. So his tool is helping my tool get the visibility and get all the downloads. So thank you for that, Ivan. And then I will be moderating the session here. So before we get started with the Q&A, and again, if you have any question answers, drop it into the chat so that I can get it across to the panelists. Now, before we get started, I believe Kaushik and Todd has some words to share with the community. So Kaushik, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can start. Hey folks, I'm Kaushik. I'm the engineering manager for Power Apps Component Framework, or PCF, as you folks know it. And I'm really excited to see the love from the community. You folks must have heard Hemant's session. Hemant was really happy about participating with the folks over here, trying to get the feedback from there. Considering that PCF is the flow dev arm for Power Apps, we thrive on interacting with the developers out there who are building custom experiences and creating magical worlds with the infrastructure that we support. So really excited to be a part of this group, and definitely looking forward to hearing from each and every one of you. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible. We'll try to kind of provide a little bit of insights into what we have been doing. So I'm pretty sure Hemant in his keynote covered about the move towards our Canvas GA for PCF, where we are trying to bridge as many gaps between the model and the Canvas world as possible. So it is a one infrastructure kind of a support where people can build controls on PCF that can seamlessly migrate between model and Canvas. That is the vision. That is the ideal world where we want to land in. We do have dependencies on model being heavy on the Dataverse side, and Canvas providing access to as many as all data sources that are available in the business application world. The challenges are real, but we are trying to find innovative ways to bridge that gap so that control developers don't have to worry about whether the control is going to land up on the model or the Canvas side. And that was the mission with GA. I'll give you a little bit of insight into what we have been working for the last couple of quarters. We have been working towards the stability of the product. We were seeing a lot of feedback from the customers out there, from developers out there about the ALM for the controls having issues, how the controls get imported and exported into their different environments, and how the interaction model is at that level. There were a lot of issues that were coming up in that side of that side of the platform. So we took a step back. We focused on fundamentals a little bit. We wanted to make sure that that experience is as smooth as possible. So when people build controls and when they actually are put on model or the canvas side of the things, there are no hiccups in that process. The control ALM, application lifecycle management, of how the control gets into a system, how it gets into an app, how it gets into an app module, all of that is pretty seamless. And then people can move those apps around seamlessly as well with the controls inside them. So we spent a little bit of focus over there, and that was the previous quarter. Last quarter, we were moving towards a GA milestone, so covering a lot of gaps, parity gaps between model and canvas, trying to get to a place, as I said, where the development model is seamless. And we were also trying to kind of address a couple of scenarios that we have seen on the MVP forum around making the data sets more powerful, having something called as an eventing structure between controls, where controls can talk to each other, they can listen to events. So all of these things are something that we have been deliberating about. We have started the design work for these things, and I'm pretty sure in the upcoming quarters we'll have all of this goodness out into the market. We've also heard the feedback around the support for virtual controls, providing the control developers access to the native React DOM that the platform supports, so that the controls themselves become lighter. They don't have to bundle some of the React and heavy Fluent libraries with them. So that's another thing that is on our milestone, which we are actively trying to work towards. And we have made some good progress in there. The design for that piece has been ironed out, and we are working on the execution piece. That is also going to kind of move into the concept of shared libraries as well. We are not going to stop at just React and Fluent easy bundling. We are trying to expand that concept so that if control developers have shared code modules that they don't want to replicate with each control, creating a concept of a shared library and having that kind of be a one input source, have some Webpack config divider around that, and have that being added as a part of a control module. But then each and every control does not need to come and bring that in. This will kind of unblock scenarios. We have seen a lot of requirements for people who are trying to build Angular controls, who have legacy Angular controls that they want to kind of play around with the PCF. So targeting libraries like these, which are heavy, but doesn't necessarily make sense to kind of bundle them across all the control types. We're working with the Portals team. There was a private preview that the Portals team did with a standard set of controls with PCF. So that infrastructure is currently in flux. We are kind of looking at an early public preview early next year, and that's going to increase the PCF surface to another layer. And that's the goal, right? We want to kind of make this the ProDev arm for as many components under the Power Platform structure as possible. The vision is to kind of extend this to things like FNO and try to see how we can kind of even get into Power BI. They have amazing story with custom visuals, and we want to kind of harness a little bit of that power and add some capability to that. So I think the opportunities are endless with PCF, and that's what excites us. That's what motivates us. That's what motivates my team to come in and kind of build the framework and see how it impacts people directly, how it impacts pro developers directly, and the love that we see on the forum and the remarks that we see on our Ask PCF channel as well. I think that we thrive more on the issues that get reported, sometimes the bugs that are found, some people doing some wonderful things with the infrastructure. Like all of this is really motivating for us. and it helps us make the platform better. So keep that love coming. Positive or negative doesn't matter, but just keep sending the feedback. And the promise from us is that we'll do our best to kind of evolve the framework to a level that each and every developer is empowered to build their vision of experience that they want on top of Power Apps. Really excited to be here.
Thank you, Kaushik. That was really insightful. And I believe Todd has few words to share.
Sure. So, hey, folks, my name is Todd Trotter. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Actually, frankly, I love PCF. It's kind of like one of the things that in my professional career I'm most proud of. And I am always excited and frankly overwhelmed to see how many people like to see the community's reception of PCF. And I'm so events like this are always just, personally, they almost touch me emotionally, to be frank. And so I'm very excited to be here and very excited to see the excitement for PCF in the community. As Danish mentioned before, I am the primary architect for PCF. I was responsible for creating its initial technical design, and for example, I built the first PCF control. And then after that, I became an engineering manager, sort of very similar to what the role Kaushik's playing now, and was responsible for driving PCF to GA in model applications. From there, I have moved into the role of just a software architect, and I'm responsible for PCF. So I continue to help with the designs in PCF. But my kind of like additional charter that I've taken on over the last year or so is this pages and components architecture. And I can see in the chat there's a lot of questions about custom pages. And I am the kind of like primary technical architect for custom pages, and kind of like driving the vision of convergence between model and canvas apps. One thing that we would like to see is right now, if you guys are, I'm sure everyone here is very familiar with building model apps. We have a few page types that you guys can customize by adding PCF controls to, right? We have dashboards and table pages or grid pages and forms, but the ability to kind of create very bespoke UI is very difficult in the platform, despite the extensibility of PCF or of even things like web resources and of modifying form XML and things like that. I mean, the number of, eventually you'll kind of hit a limitation in terms of what the platform is able to provide in terms of custom kind of layout options. And where we would like to move to is a framework or an application building platform that allows very bespoke experiences and the ability to reuse some of the powerful concepts that we have in model apps and wire them up through low-code expressions. And what we call this is pages and components, right? So we get a page type that you can create kind of a data model and a binding of the elements on a page through low-code expressions. And those things that are on the page are components. And those components are either your low-code components, your low-code canvas components, or your pro-code PCF components. And importantly, all of the major artifacts of model apps need to be componentized so that they can be dropped on these pages. And that's really the vision of where we want to go with custom pages. So we want to be able to, for example, give you a grid component and a form component and allow you to wire up a communication between the two through expressions. And that is kind of like where we would like to see the application architecture go over the next year. So any questions about PCF? Obviously, a lot of experts here that probably even know more than me at this point. I'm sure we're happy to answer, but also any questions about custom pages, we're definitely happy to answer those as well. And once again, just want to say thanks for the opportunity to be here. After this call, if you have questions for me personally, feel free to reach out over email or LinkedIn. I'm really happy to engage individually with any PCF asks. And that's it. Thanks, Danish.
Yeah, thank you very much, Todd. And again, it was insightful on components and pages related things, because that's something that most of people might have questions around, because that's something new and people are still discovering things, how to use it, and how it all ties up with PCF and things like that. So it's great to hear from you and Kaushik. It's so privileged to have you guys over here, and along with Scott and Diana. So let's start with the Q&A session. And let me see. The first question is, okay, so it's from Betim Pager. And the question is anybody else bothered by the fact that this bug or inconsistency is not solved yet? And the inconsistency that he's referring to is from the, it's called incorrect return type. So let me open this up. He has shared a link. So I'll have to go to the link. And says the documentation and the typing seems to be not aligned with the online version of CRM. You want to come off mute and then explain what this is, Betim? Is it? Let me allow Mike. Okay. You can ask your question now if you want to.
Hello, everyone. So, like more than half of a year ago, I have opened two issues in the documentations because if you download the web API example and you register it in the CRM, then you will get an error if you try to delete a record, let's say. And the typing for the delete record is expecting and the ID to be an object with a GUID, but the actual return type is an entity reference, let's say, entity type, ID, and name. So
Right.
that was the thing.
But we have recently fixed this issue, and the new typings will be coming out pretty soon. And to provide a little bit of history around this, this is the reason why we see this issue is that there are certain pipelines in the Dataverse world which actually represent the older entity reference model, where you will see the GUID coming in as a string. And then there are newer APIs. There was a refactor, and it was identified that we need to actually move to the GUID being just a GUID, and that was a new definition of entity reference. So there was this conflict that started happening where the typings first reflected a definition of the object, and then they were changed to reflect another definition of the object. But not all the API surfaces in the Dataverse are currently kind of resonating with both. So we recently pushed out a change. It should hopefully land in maybe in the next couple of weeks out there, and probably hit the toolings CLI tooling with the next release that goes out with them as well. And that should basically help alleviate this problem. We are making it more flexible for the people to kind of consume both these API models and have entity reference versus lookup reference object, which actually defines this the GUID in a different manner than what the entity reference object defines, and that should be coming out pretty soon. We acknowledge that there was a lot of pain around that. We were just trying to figure out how do we solve this so that we don't break a lot of back compat.
Thank you, Kaushik, for that answer. Hopefully now Betim would be peaceful and he'll have a peaceful sleep tonight. Now he knows that it's coming out, right? Next question is from Victor. And the question is, when can we expect Fluent UI controls to be available in the Maker portal? And will the source code for those be available on GitHub?
So I can answer the question around when the Fluent UI controls will be available in Studio. We're, I think as many of you have seen, Ryan made an announcement about a new app convergence where you're kind of allowed to kind of combine or create an model app module, and then inside of that model app module add canvas apps to your sitemap, and we're calling these custom pages. This is planned to go into a public preview in about roughly 2 months. In the studio for the new custom page editor, the Fluent controls will be will be available. So this will be an extension from where they're currently available, which is just in Teams. We're adding them to the custom page editor as well. And the hope is by the end of the year, the new Fluent controls will kind of be front and center and available in standalone Canvas apps as well. But yeah, the hope is as early as in 2 months, once we do get custom pages to public preview, you'll start seeing the Fluent controls available. As to the question about providing the source code, I don't know, like most people are probably aware of this, but almost every control in model apps today is a PCF control. Of course, the same will be true for Canvas apps shortly. I think there's a lot of scenarios that we've solved internally that we see a lot of questions asked about in the community. And we do have good, like a lot of code that we could share. I think this is an interesting idea, or kind of like an effort that the PCF team could take up, which is kind of like selecting a set of like good example controls that maybe the platform uses, maybe the Fluent controls are a good example, and share the source code for that. So I think, Kaushik, maybe that's something that we should discuss. But I know for a fact that we will be releasing, along with kind of this movement to Fluent, we'll be kind of releasing some more first-class support for React-based or certainly Fluent-based controls in PCF and through the CLI. And when we do that, we will be releasing samples around how to use Fluent and React. So hopefully that will answer a little bit of the question, even if we don't, and then I think we can follow up on the releasing of all of the source code for all the Fluent controls. I think that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think that really makes sense. I think we already kind of have some sample controls out there which give an idea on how to use some of the APIs with PCF. And once we have the some virtual controls and the Fluent UI controls out in the mainstream, it might make sense for us to kind of expand the sample control territory and probably provide some insights into the actual controls that are shipped with the app. I don't think there is any harm in actually sending the source code out for that.
So can I just add a little bit extra question on there? So, and I think actually I saw it in the chat, was that so if you're going to put those Fluent controls out, then presumably they're using the Fluent that comes with the app runtime and the React library that comes with the runtime.
Good question.
So does that mean, yeah, you see where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
Because it is one of those things a lot of people are asking for constantly, is like, why do we need to bundle React and why do we need to bundle Fluent when it's just there in the runtime, both in Canvas and model? Obviously, Portal a little bit out there. But so when you release that source code, are they going to be virtual controls? And does that mean that we're going to be able to start using virtual controls? And when will that be?
Excellent question, Scott. And I think I touched a little bit on this when I started kind of providing a little bit of insider feedback. We are already kind of iterating on the virtual control piece along with what we are calling as the PCF libraries. We have a design in mind, and we are currently executing on that. The goal for us is to kind of aim for an October milestone to try and push out the virtual control support. So this would give control developers the access to at least React and a Fluent shared library concept where they don't have to bundle these. The goal for, as I said, the goal for us is to extend this out and move it not being just React and Fluent, but having the capabilities in the future to actually even do code modules that developers can write, which can be shared across different controls. So October is the milestone that we are trying to kind of hit for this piece. Don't quote me on that. That is the best that we are currently evaluating. It's a very a volatile kind of a place, because we have to think about situations around backcompat, around versioning, around if we do actually end up supporting a platform version of these libraries, what happens tomorrow when we have to go and update the platform? What happens to the controls that are still leveraging the older ones? So keeping all of those scenarios intact and coming up with a robust solution is the challenge in this process. And that's what we are kind of deliberating and making sure that not only is the experience new and powerful, but we are also cognizant about the fact that there are a lot of controls that exist there that have dependencies on certain versions, and how do we solve that problem all up. So a little complex problem to solve, but we are on it, and we are trying to eye October milestone for this.
Okay, well, thank you for that answer. So moving on to the next question. So the next question is from Philip Cole, and the question is, what do you think of future of web resources in model-driven apps now that PowerFX is being incorporated in model-driven apps?
So maybe I can take this one as well. Let me preface this by saying there is no immediate future where web resources are going away, just to be very, very clear. There are still lots of scenarios that web resources satisfy outside of even obviously UI extensions, but in functional extensions or on-change handlers for form events and for commands and stuff like that. So certainly web resources aren't going away anywhere. However, we do want to kind of move people away from using web resources and just like raw JavaScript code to extend the platform. And the two options we are currently putting forth are obviously PCF to replace UI extensions and PowerFX to replace. It'll start with replacing command extension. Sorry, sounds like someone. Anyway, and those replacements are likely to come in the next with it. Well, PCF's already here, and the commanding extensions is going to be coming in the next few months. So the goal will definitely be to move away from resources and move to things that are more declarative, that can be analyzed like the PowerFX language, and allows us to be more performant and track dependencies better, right? So there's a lot of benefit that comes with moving away from like raw, black boxes kind of JavaScript code, and moving to components that are more components whose dependencies and data requirements and like inputs and outputs are more strongly understood at development time, as opposed to just kind of like waiting for runtime. So as to the future, I would say there's going to be a constant push to move away from web resources over time, but certainly not something that's going to be immediate.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. That helps with the answer for the question. And yeah, maybe I have a follow-up question as well. So when you say that we are going to replace at some point in future, we're going to replace it with PowerFX, right? So that means that we won't have JavaScript or TypeScript. Like we are trying to go to a place where we only would have PowerFX and not have TypeScript. Is that what we're trying to get to?
So I think there's going to be a push to move to PowerFX. Now say, is there a future where there's no like TypeScript? I doubt that. I think we're very long way away from that, frankly.
Okay.
Not only from a like a third party like ISV perspective, but even a bunch of our own internal Microsoft built applications and things like that heavily rely on like a client API and web resources and TypeScript code to create their scenarios. And in fact, there's just simply no apps that exist that Microsoft produces that don't leverage these things. So like I said, it's more of like we want to be able to show people the benefit of moving to PowerFX, whether that's the ease of like the maker experience, right? It's simply easier to write Excel-like functions for most end users than it is to write JavaScript, right? So there's an ease of development, but then there's also some really powerful things around like if you write an expression using PowerFX, I can analyze that expression and I can determine all sorts of interesting things about how the application should load. For example, what type of data that you may want to query? What are the dependencies that I need to have pre-downloaded so that the application can be performant, right? Interesting things too, like we talked about feature usage earlier in the cool little like kind of manifest generation tool that was demoed. These things are like the reason why we ask you to upfront declare that you want to use a camera is so that we can make sure that the control that needs the camera can ask a native like device for permission to use the camera, right? And so there's a lot of like interesting scenarios that we can do with more declarative constructs like PCF or PowerFX. So more than just saying dropping support for something. That's definitely not what we're trying to do. I think what we're trying to do is show people the value of these other options, and hopefully the community moves on its own.
Right. Yeah, it does make sense. Okay, so moving on to next question, and I may be skipping some questions because my screen went up and down, so I may have already missed a few. That's fine. So next question is from Nilesh Shah, and his question is, when will custom pages be GA'd?
Yeah, so I guess I can take that one as well. Custom pages, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned this in a previous answer. We are really hoping to get to public preview within the next roughly 2 months. After public preview, we hope to GA by roughly October.
Okay. Next question is not actually PCF related or custom pages related, so I'm going to skip that and move on to the next one. Please do. Okay. Okay, so now this question is from Victor Dentes. He's one of our organizer, and the question is the end vision of to enable future usage and entries for different services, for example, Power BI visual or data sources, or Power Automate flow triggers?
So I do actually, if I understand the question, I think I maybe could interpret the question one of two ways. So please correct me if I'll answer them both, and we can go from there. I think if I heard the question correctly, it may be interpreted one of two ways. It's like a PCF control declare feature usage over things like flow, like being able to execute like flow actions and things like that, or connectors or things like this. Anything that the PCF control that requires from its environment, whether that's properties that need to come in to give data to the control, or the capabilities of the platform that's hosting the control that may or may not be available. Any of these types of things we want to drive through feature usage. So this is definitely going to be extended to things like the ability to execute flows and the ability to invoke connectors, for example, from the context of a PCF control. These things are very important once again. So for example, if the community or someone authors a PCF control that's invoking a connector, we need to make sure that control is only available for configuration in on surfaces where connector support is available, right? So for example, portals is not likely to have connector support anytime soon, just based on the architecture of how connectors work. So yes, for things like executing flow and connectors and stuff, definitely we want to move to using feature usage. If the question also, maybe I could interpret it a different way, which is, do I want to have some sort of declaration about where a PCF control is also available for configuration? So for example, like maybe you have controls that are only available in Canvas apps or model apps. That too is also something that we see as important. Maybe there's controls that only make sense in portals, for example, and we want to give control developers the kind of like ability to specify where their control will be available. And that's something that will be coming in the next little while as well.
Yeah. Victor, did that answer your question? I think so. You got more than what you asked for.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure I caught the exact question, but hopefully it got answered. So.
Yeah, that was that. I remember Kaushik mentioned a success story between Power BI and the visualization. So I was just curious how the PCF controls would overlap with features already available from those other technologies. So this is perfect answer, Todd, and go Utes.
Yeah, that's right. Go Utes. I'll second that. So.
Yep. Next question is from Phil Cole again, and this time his question is around custom pages, and his question is, will business rules work on custom pages? Example, a business rule to show hide a field across all forms.
Sure, I can answer that as well. So business rules are scoped to specific surfaces currently, and an important thing to understand about business rules is they're executed both on the client and for business rules that affect data validation, they're executed on the server as well. So certainly the data validation style, like entity level PBL rules, will continue to execute on the server wherever, and that's true of standalone Canvas apps today, just FYI. So those will continue to execute. Now, ones that are scoped to like form scope and deal with showing and hiding, fields, for example, those are going to stay executing when we are dealing with form components or.
Did we lose Todd? I think so. We lost Todd. Todd, can you hear us? Because we cannot hear you.
The ability to host.
We lost him. Okay, well, we'll let him join back, and in the meantime, we'll just move on to the next question. And the next question is, when will PCF be available on on-premise 9.1? That has been an ask forever.
That's a good question, and at this point of time, at least in all transparency, the on-premise v9.1, we are not planning to actually push PCF support in there. There's a couple of reasons for that. I think the primary reason is that we are trying to evaluate whether enabling that pipeline on the on-premise side is going to be something that is going to be useful in the long-term vision for the on-premise piece itself, right? The long-term vision for the on-premise is for us to kind of move the customers to the online model for ease of maintainability, and with now the Azure stacks and other Azure technologies catching up to kind of a hybrid on-premise environment infrastructure where we have the capabilities of kind of having the end users, enterprise customers host their own data centers and stacks while still kind of being able to deploy Azure for them and deploy things on top of Azure for them. The vision is to kind of move to either online or a hybrid online state. So on-premise is something that at this point of time we are not actively investing in from the PCF side. That being said, we are open to feedback. We are open to gathering kind of support for how many people out there actually are looking for PCF on-premise, and if that actually turns out to be if the feedback is in the volume that is actually kind of reflective of its usage, then we will definitely kind of figure a way for us to unblock PCF. We don't have to do a kind of like a magic to kind of enable PCF on-premise. The underlying code bases are pretty similar, but we have to think about the maintainability perspectives on the on-premise side, especially for control, how the controls will be updated, how will they be upgraded. Online, it is easier for us, right? Because we have the control over the entire infrastructure. As newer controls come in, as control definition upgrades come in, we seamlessly push them across in the model environment and the Canvas environment. That is not the story with on-premise. On-premise, people can stick with a version of on-premise for a very longer time. So the complications arise from the fact of how do we handle versioning? How do we handle people who have not upgraded on-premise for a couple of years, have controls that have not upgraded for so much time, and then decide to kind of upgrade? What is a success path for them? We don't want people to come kind of, for lack of terms, kind of shoot themselves in the foot by sticking onto a version for a longer period of time and then not have an upgrade plan or an upgrade story. So I think on-premise is a little complex in that sense, not from the underlying infrastructure perspective. If people kind of unanimously agreed to kind of take newer URs and newer on-premise bits every time they went out, we would happily kind of support PCF. But I think what we are looking at the field is that some customers kind of stick with an on-premise version for, even for a couple of years without actually moving or consuming newer URs. So the upgrade paths, the upgrade stories around controls becomes a little tricky. That being said, send in your feedback. If you feel folks are seeing there is value in there, if people are looking out for, building PCF experiences on-premise, send us that feedback, and we'll happily, brainstorm and figure out a way to come out of this.
Yeah. Now, hearing you say about all these complexities that you are looking at, it really feels like it's a very hard part to take on. But if people really want to send that feedback, how do they send the feedback? Do we have some kind of a link? How do they communicate that
So
they want it on-prem?
you can reach out to the Power Apps idea forum, and you can kind of push that idea. If the idea is not already there, create one, and people can vote it up. And we actively monitor that as kind of looking for what the forum is looking at, what the MVP community is looking at, and if it gets enough love, we'll definitely kind of try to figure out a way to enable it. As I said, you folks are our customers in a way, right? Because pro dev community is what drives PCF and the pro dev story in Power Apps. So if you folks want it, we'll figure out a way to land it.
Yeah. Thank you, Kaushik. Next question is from Bota. It's a very big question. Let me just read it. So he added editable view control in Dynamics grid form on the model-driven app, and the editable view was enabled for web, tablet, but grayed out for mobile. So the question is, can he adapt the existing control or create his own control so that the grid view is editable on a mobile device? Let's just go with that. He has a lot of other questions, but let's go with that first.
Yeah, so to maybe I'll restate the problem in case folks aren't didn't catch what the question was. We obviously have released an editable grid control, but that editable grid control, while it's available for configuration on for mobile applications and for tablet applications, it has been disabled for phone applications, if that makes sense. And the reason why is because the grid team felt like it was there's no technical reason. It was purely one around, can we create a editable data set or editable grid experience that we feel comfortable with on like the phone form factor. We did, I don't know if folks might remember this, but when the control was initially released, it was released on mobile as well, and they tried to create kind of like a touch-driven editing experience. However, the feedback was very poor. Most customers felt like it was very difficult to edit, and there was a lot of like usability challenges that I don't think we were confident that we could release a control that like we felt met our Microsoft standards on mobile devices. So I think as part of this exploration, we sort of came to the conclusion that most customers, or there's for the folks that were currently using the editable grid on web and on tablet, they may not want that same experience to translate to their phone form factor, and they would rather just have a read-only experience. That was kind of the thinking that the team went through. Now, like I said, there is no lack of underlying like technology that would allow either the editable grid to work on phone form factors or, for example, for you folks to go create your own editable grid control. I guess that's a question maybe for Kaushik then is do we see PCF releasing the editable dataset APIs anytime soon? So go ahead and take that away. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Todd is putting me in all like sort of complex situations here. So the short answer is yes. We are working on trying to bring the same editable experience that we kind of launched with the table designer work that we did for the teams. It's not a superset of the experience that is currently available in UCI. It is a subset of that experience, but I think the goal that we are driving towards is providing a more user-friendly experience and identifying what are the scenarios that MVPs are actually interested in and what actually drives value rather than just copying over what exactly is present in the UCI. So we are currently working on enabling dataset APIs, editable dataset APIs across the model and the canvas stack. The functionality is scoped down to what we released in the table designer piece. So you might see that there might be certain data sets that are data types that are missing, complex data sets like multi-entity lookup controls and stuff like that. But our goal is to kind of present or release an iteration of the editable API so the community can start consuming it and providing us feedback and then iterating and adding these complex functionalities across the way. So we don't have a fixed timeline on this yet as to when we will be GAing this. We are trying to come to at least a public preview by the end of this year. That is the target that we have on our side to kind of expose these editable dataset APIs for both model and canvas, and the controls can then seamlessly work across the board. So in the future, Bora, you should be able to create your own control and using the dataset APIs, and will have the ability to kind of let it flow across all the device surfaces. And maybe you can come up with a UX experience that is actually works magically on the mobile surface as well. As Todd mentioned, that the interaction pattern that we were looking at, it was harder for people on smaller device surfaces to kind of touch and add data on a tabular grid with just a small UI surface. But I'm pretty sure that people have great capabilities of breaking open this UX challenge as well. So yes, the dataset APIs are coming. We'll try to get them to public preview by the end of this year. It's going to be a subset of the whole support set that we have on the UCI, but it's going to be an iterative task after that to add all of those capabilities in.
Cool. Yeah, good to know that the dataset APIs are being worked upon, and we'll be able to see it soon. So thank you for that insight. Next question is Philip Cole, and I see I may have missed some questions, and if I've missed some questions, just repost them because my screen just went up and down, so I might have missed some questions. But anyway, Phil Cole's question is, do you think the ribbon command bar will become a PCF control eventually?
Another good question. Maybe I'll jump in again. As I mentioned kind of in my intro, one of our goals over the next year is to do what we call componentize most of the UI components, especially the UI components that you guys are familiar with in Model. And one of the first elements that we are, or UI components that we are going to make available for more easy consumption is the command bar. And there will be two kind of flavors of this that we do plan on releasing. One of them is providing a mechanism, especially for dataset controls, to retrieve the commands that are associated with the underlying dataset. If that dataset is tied to Dataverse, you can get the grid context commands available directly in your PCF control, and there will be APIs for retrieving those. So this is kind of work that's underway right now. In addition, we do plan on releasing a standalone command bar component or command bar control as well, that can be kind of configured or has a configuration experience to say, hey, I want you to render the commands for this data set, if that makes sense, and you can configure it to some data source on a custom page. So both of these things are coming. The command bar component is kind of loosely tagged to be released as part of the custom page GA effort. It is going to be a PCF control, so it will definitely leverage these PCF APIs that we will release at some point in the future. The plan to actually make those APIs publicly available to retrieve commands, I think we're kind of that is still it's not exactly clear when those will be released, but something that will be there in the product and available for Kaushik to release whenever he feels ready to support it.
Yeah, and you also have a name suggestion from Victor called the Power Bar.
Oh wow! Hey, that's a fantastic name. I will definitely float that up. In fact, we'll just call it Power Bar from now when you guys see it on the custom page. So there you go.
Yeah, and you'll have to give that credit to Victor at some point, though, for the name.
Fair enough. We'll add a comment in our code. How about that?
Exactly. Okay, moving on to the next question. This is from Manmeet. And the question is, can we have something called best practices while developing PCF control? Probably something which Microsoft wants us to follow in terms of future enhancements on the whole PCF platform.
That's a great question. I can start, and maybe Todd can chime in as well. I think this is something that we have been evaluating internally and trying to identify with our partner teams. So PCF gets consumed within Microsoft as well. You'll see that a lot of out-of-the-box controls that get shipped with both model and canvas are based off of PCF. And you'll also see that a lot of partner teams, for example, if you look at other solutions that get shipped out from Microsoft, sales, marketing, Power MR, and some other partners that are coming along at this point of time, they all are kind of invested in using PCF as a way to create custom experiences if they don't find what they're expecting in the Power App side of the thing. So we are working with them, trying to get their feedback and trying to collate information, which could result in a document like what has been asked over here. It is in the works, and we are slowly but surely adding content to that. We are trying to figure out what's a good way for kind of releasing it out to the wide forum, whether it should come in as just textual content, or whether we should evaluate something like a solution checker in which we try to kind of, instead of just identifying these rules as like text content, which people may or may not adhere to, we provide some capabilities as a part of our solution checker package, which goes and says that, oh, you're doing X, Y, and Z by just static analysis, which is not something that is going to be useful in the future or will cause performance evaluation gaps and stuff like that. So this is a thing that we're actively working on and trying to figure out what the best way for us to release that is. It might be a mix and match of both, where we have some kind of textual-based guidance for developers using sample controls and using other documentation pieces that go out, but will be expanded by adding some solution checker rules or some kind of a static analysis rule that go out as a part of either solution checker or maybe inside of the CLI tooling as well. So there is a lot of thoughts that are currently being floated on in this, and we are trying to come up with an experience that will basically cater to this exact question that was asked.
Yeah, and I think so adding it to the CLI might be useful, because then the community can utilize that to build tools on top of it, so that when they're developing it, they can check it on the fly itself, rather than waiting for the solution checker to check it, right? Something that you can think about.
Yeah, definitely agree with that, Danish. And with the product community in mind, we are also trying to lean more towards the left side, which is basically giving most of the feedback in the early control development stage itself, so that it is not pushed towards the solution checker or an import pipeline. Right. So definitely, I think that's a point well taken. Any static analysis piece that we can have evaluation being done on the tooling side, we'll definitely try to partner with the CLI folks and kind of add it way early in the pro code cycle so that people can adopt those and get feedback relatively soon. Point well taken.
I'd also comment that a lot of our best practices are actually driven by the community itself. I mean, we have Diana, Scott, Danish. I mean, you guys are like leading the effort. I will, like, just as an example from this week, I was on a call with a customer and they were asking about drag and drop functionality, and I'm like, yeah, I think Scott just posted a video about this. So I think that these guys are also the experts for providing a lot of the best practices on how to solve specific scenarios, whereas I think what Kaushik and I can provide is more like, hey, we want to make sure that like the ALM of your control is good, the performance is good, things like that. But how to achieve specific scenarios, I'd always defer to the community as a whole.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kaushik and Todd, for that answer. And so moving on to the next question, it's from Kokulan, and the question is, with the convergence of model-driven and Canvas app to a custom page model, will there be a new client library to support both app types? Will there be any change to the command bar? And then there are a few other questions. So let's just get these two questions answered first, and then we'll see if you want to get more into details into other questions.
Yeah, so if I understand the question correctly, it's so we have converged apps coming along, and I think the question is there a component library that'll allow you to build a low-code expression that's usable in both certainly usable in the converged app experience, and maybe usable on both model pages as well as custom pages. And this is actually in development now. So the ability to write, for example, a command using a low-code expression and have that low-code expression execute on either a custom page or on a in a model app. So that is currently underway, and I think it has been, if not announced, I just announced it, but nevertheless, it'll be coming out shortly. Now, it is yet to be determined whether those same capabilities will be extendable to standalone Canvas apps, but certainly in the converged app space, certainly on custom pages and in your model forms, model grids, that kind of thing, you will be able to write commands using low-code expressions, and those commands will work on all pages.
Awesome. Well, we only have 3 minutes left, so we won't be able to get through all the questions. So let's see, we'll do one more question and then we'll probably have to end the session. So any question that you want to pick, Diana, Kaushik, or any question that you want to pick from the stack of all the 100 questions that we have in the chat?
I know the 1 hour seems a very short time, and as Todd mentioned that feel free to keep these questions coming through our forums, through our channels. You can find me on LinkedIn and post me a set of questions. I'll try to get to them. And so is Todd. The community, the team itself that builds Power PCF is really passionate about getting to know the feedback, getting to know what people are expecting. So this is not a stopping point. The next 3 minutes is not where we end kind of listening to what you folks are, talking about, what you folks want from us. So keep the inputs coming through the various channels that are available out there. Todd, any particular question that you want to pick up and answer? If I could, I would answer almost all of them. And it's just yeah.
So let me. So Victor just posted a good one, and I think so that would be beneficial for most of these people, because most of them are either getting into PCF or having hard time learning PCF, starting with it. So Victor did post a question like, what would be the best path in learning PCF?
So maybe I'll jump in again. I'm sure all of you are aware of the documentation that Microsoft has. If not, I'll paste a link. Anyway, I'm sure that that's readily available. That being said, I actually don't think that that's the best resource to getting started. I'm pretty sure Danish has a book, and Scott has a how-to series, and Diana has a blog that has about 50,000 examples of how to build different controls. I would say those are actually probably the best resources to getting started. Certainly check out our documentation. I think we've actually tried very hard, believe it or not. Documentation is very hard to write. It's I think for us, for Kaushik and I, it's much harder to write documentation than code, and absolutely that's true. Providing good, clear examples on how to do things is a very challenging problem, and I don't think it's actually a problem that our team has solved particularly well. I think we've done a good job, but I definitely would say that the resources that are available in the community are going to be better, more comprehensive, more in depth. Covers a broader range of topics than our documentation. So I guess that's what I would say. Go to our documentation. Maybe it has some good tutorials on how to download the CLI and how to maybe do your first kind of hello world control. But from there, I would defer to kind of the resources from the rest of the folks on this panel.
Yeah, and also I've pasted a link to my book on Amazon, and also if you want the digital copy, you can still get the digital copy, which is 35% off. There's a code called code is 35 power. You have to go to pack.com and search for my book and enter the promo code as 35 power, and then you would get a 35% discount on the book. Scott Duro has his course available on PCF for model-driven apps, and I know he's also working on the Canvas app part of it as well, right, Scott?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Just waiting for GA.
Yeah. So yeah, once PCF is available for GA, PCF for Canvas app is GA, then look out for the course from Scott on PCF for Canvas app as well. But in the meantime, if you want to get, you can enroll into his course on PCF for model-driven apps. With that, I think so we are about time. Thank you, Kaushik. Thank you, Todd, Diana, and Scott for joining us today and answering all the questions and making us feel better about PCF, and then seeing where the vision leads to. I think so. I'm really excited in the next year.
Yeah, thanks for having us. As I said, right, it feels the hour flies like anything. I didn't even realize that the hour is gone. But uh, I'm really proud of the community that we have built, the interactions that you folks are driving, and I'll share a small kind of an internal thing before we leave. So at one point of time, Hemant used to kind of eagle eye the forum, right? He was sitting every day looking at each and every comment. And at this point of time, he's so happy with the community and the way that you folks are driving it that he's like, I ping him, Hemant, how's the status on the forum? He's like, dude, the community just takes care of it, man. It's like people are answering each other's questions, people are unblocking each other, and if there are concerns, they are getting raised through the proper channels. So his job is a little easier now, and so is mine. So thanks for contributing. Thanks for consuming the platform, loving the platform. Giving us critical feedback as well. That is how we grow. So really appreciate all the hard work that you folks do to kind of build great experiences on Power Apps and promote it as a platform. Thanks everyone.
Yeah. Thank you again. And with that, we'll end this session. And the next presenter is going to be